Hi, I'm Jessica.
I'm Darci.
And welcome to our Mother-Daughter podcast. Welcome back to episode 2 of our podcast. I'm really excited about this one. We have all of our favorite books to share with y'all as well at the end of the podcast, so stick around.
I know. Okay, it's on Homebirth, and we only had 7 months to put it together. Unbeknownst to me, actually, and my son-in-law, Jessica decided and then informed us.
Well, I don't think that's exactly how it went.
But go ahead.
My husband was a lot more involved in the decision-making process to some degree than she wants to portray. What happened with that was, we found out we were pregnant, and I went back and forth a lot on what kind of a birth I wanted because my first 2 birth experiences were in the hospital and they weren't great. And I had heard a lot about home birth, and I had talked to several people around the town we live in about their home births and how that went. A lot of people, or I wouldn't say a lot, but a couple people in Texas had home births, and so I had talked to them about it. Well, most everybody, I'm pretty sure, had a midwife attend their home birth, but we ended up deciding just to have a free birth, which means there was no physician at the actual birth. And that sounds scary to a lot of people, but mind you, I've birthed 2 healthy babies through 2 healthy pregnancies. I had a few complications with my daughter, but that was only because of what the doctors had done.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into that in a minute. But so I talked to my husband. We were talking about it for months, I think even a year before we even got pregnant. And I was like, when we have another baby, I would really like to have a home birth. And my wonderful husband is just on board with everything. If he's like, if that's what you want to do, we'll do it. I mean, go for it. So I was like, okay, but there's not going to be anybody there. And he goes, nah, okay, we'll deal with it. And I was like, all right.
Good man.
Yeah.
He's a good man.
And we got pregnant, and then I was like, all right, we're doing this. And he's like, I'm on board. No, actually, he didn't exactly say he was on board 100%. He said, only if your mom is there. And I said, well, obviously she's going to be there because it's my mom. But she was at my other 2 births as well. And so she's been at every single one of them, helping deliver her grandbabies. Each one, she's more and more involved in the process, which has been great.
Has been great.
Yeah. So that's how we came to the decision as to doing a home birth.
People need to know what led you to doing that, because a lot of people would think, wow, I couldn't do that, but this is what led us down that road.
Yeah. Midwives that I have talked to in the past, or even watching midwives on videos online, and they say that women who decide to do home births generally have 1 or 2 births in the hospital before, and then they decide on home births after that. Mm-hmm. Makes you think about something, I hope.
Yeah.
But my first birth, I was 20 when I had my first. And that one, so when I was younger, I've always wanted to be a wife and a mom. Luckily, my husband has always wanted his wife to be a mom and stay home and just be a wife and a mom. Growing up, my mom had 2 C-sections, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have 2 babies by the time I'm 23. They're both going to be C-sections, schedule them, easy peasy, not even have to deal with it. That was my attitude. Then when I got pregnant, I was like, I had known a couple people who had C-sections, and they're like, oh, the recovery is horrible. I was like, that's fine. Just give me the drugs. And so I was pregnant with my first. I went into labor, and I labored at home quite a bit. Actually, I was in the middle of making, I think, 10 or 12 apple pies.
And a roast.
And I wouldn't leave the house until I ate my roast because I knew they wouldn't let me eat in the hospital.
Right.
So I'm laboring,
She's
cooking.
laboring over the crock pot.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I should have just stayed home anyways. I'm eating the roast, and we go to the hospital after that. And they give me the epidural. And I mean, it was an easy birth. I'll tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, I didn't feel a thing, you know, it's like, cool. I didn't feel a thing enough to where my husband was half asleep on the couch most of the time because, I mean, it didn't hurt. I was like, all right. He was there as soon as, you know, the baby came out. But the next morning, though, is when things started kind of taking a turn because the baby was born, I think, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning? 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning?
Probably, somewhere in between there. We were all tired.
It was on a Thursday morning, like super early. And so then, you know, everyone left the room. I had my baby, blah, blah, blah. Cut the cord right away, all the things that you do in the hospital. And I was a young mom. I was 20 years old. I was really young. I didn't know much. I didn't research, which I should have. And then the next morning, no one comes to check on me, as far as I know, until about 10 o'clock. Okay. Now, by then, they've taken my catheter out. The epidural's wearing off, all the things, but I still can't feel like I have to pee. By the way, this will be a TMI episode. So if you're not about that, you might want to click somewhere else right now. Yeah. Anyways, so a nurse comes in at 10 a.m. and I guess they had already changed again from nurses in their rotations or whatever. She comes in and she's like, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. She's feeling my stomach and she flips out. She goes, when did someone come in here? And I said, I mean, I haven't seen anybody all morning. And she said, oh my gosh. I was like, what's going on? I start to freak out. Well, apparently my bladder's so full because someone was supposed to come in the room and help me to the bathroom at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, a couple hours after the baby was born, because I had an epidural and I couldn't feel anything. Well, my bladder was so full, she said my uterus was about to wrap around my spine. So obviously I'm freaking out because that sounds super scary. So then she has to put another catheter in. I can feel that. That hurt. And problem solved. You know, I was in the hospital for, I think, 2 days because of the epidural and all their, you know, things. So the healing process after having him was very long. I bled for at least 2 months, if not a little bit more. I had a 2nd-degree tear, and I don't know, it just, the undercarriage took a little longer. I thought was normal at the time. Okay, jump forward to my second birth now. She was born the month before I turned 23. So my goal when I was young, 2 kids by 23, I met that one, just saying. Well, married and then have 2 kids by 23 was my goal, which I met. Now, did I miss anything? I want to make sure. Did I miss anything with Carter?
I think only the first one of the hospital things that they do, which is really annoying. And they did it when I was, you know, when I had kids, is the nurses would come in when the pediatrician was making their rounds, and they'd want to gather up all the children, all the babies, and put them in the baby nursery.
Did that happen with the first one?
It did, because I had to tell them no.
Oh, see, I'm so glad that we're doing this together because there's some things I just don't remember.
Yeah, no, I told them no. He has to come here, and you have to argue with him a little bit, and finally they give in because you're a paying customer. They have no choice, but they do make mothers feel like they have to take the baby, and you can say no, and that's what I told her. I said we can say no. They might not like it because it's inconvenient, but guess what? Too bad. Things happen to babies that you're not aware of when they're not in your sight.
Like that story that just came out about that nurse switching how many babies over her career?
Yeah.
So messed up.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. And we dealt with that with the second one. I dealt with that with both of mine. It's just something y'all need to know.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
The other part of that, too, is when she had her epidural with the first one, the birth, I mean, everything went fine except for a little more TMI here. She had some major swelling.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it was I mean, I am not even exaggerating. And I'm looking at that. I'm trying not to be alarmed because I don't want to alarm her or Alex. I'm looking at that because there's nothing we can do at that point. I mean, it's just there. And so once the baby came out, then they were doing all the things. But that to me was a big one.
For the second one, I was a little bit more informed. I had started to be crunchy when I was pregnant. Well, I wouldn't say crunchy. I was a little more conscious about what I was eating and feeding myself when I got pregnant with number one. But after having one and making my baby food and learning more, because you learn everything as a parent, your eyes are opened to so much. And there are lots of things that I regret doing with my first. Actually, that reminds me, one of the things I regret. So I wasn't able to breastfeed.
Yeah.
And I really do think that has a lot to do with the epidural. And they actually did give me Pitocin because they wanted the placenta to come really fast, like most doctors do. All doctors, as far as I know.
Called turning the tables.
Yes.
Anyone who's waited tables knows what that means.
You couldn't breastfeed him. I tried. And at that time, in this small town we lived in, there wasn't a lactation consultant. Everyone was telling me, oh, formula's fine, fed is best, that whole propaganda campaign. Mm-hmm. Now, don't come after me, you formula moms. If you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice.
Right.
You
didn't have a choice at that point.
At that point, I didn't have a choice. He needed to be fed. Yes. I wish I would have known other options at that time besides formula, because there are other things you can do. Go research it for yourself. We're not going to get into that today. And maybe not ever, because, that's technically medical advice for babies, and I'm not going to get in trouble for that. I will do what I do. You do what you do. Breast is best, though. Sorry. I was super disappointed about not being able to feed him. And I honestly, I blame it on, there was no lactation consultant, but also when you have an epidural, there's a disconnect in hormones between you and baby. Okay. And when you're shot up with Pitocin, there's a disconnect between your hormones and the baby's hormones. I think that's why. Do I know for certain? No, but that is my honest guess. Now, jump forward to my second baby right before I turned 23.
Okay, number two. You had a midwife.
I had a midwife this time, because the first time I had an OB. Mm-hmm. But a midwife actually ended up delivering my baby. But I had the midwives at the hospital, and at this particular hospital, and I think this is the way most hospitals operate with midwives, is there's the group of them, and you kind of just jump between them all. So you don't exactly get a one-on-one experience, and you don't get to know who your doctor is the day of your birth and all the things, which really sucked. And I denied quite a bit with my second. And at this point, I was crunching. And I denied the glucose test. That was one of the first things I denied when they test for gestational diabetes. And this part is so funny to me, because I was like, I don't. And this one midwife, she was the one who pushed me on everything. And I just kept telling her no. But her and I went rounds and rounds and rounds. I was like, I'm not drinking your poison beverage of sugar, because I can tell you right now, I'm not going to process it properly, because I don't put that crap in my body. And she's like, well, you need to take it. We need to know if you have diabetes. I was like, I don't have gestational diabetes. I am extremely healthy. She goes, oh, I have a lot of thin people tell me that all the time, and then they have it. I was like, I don't doubt that. There are a lot of people who can eat garbage and still be thin. That's, good for them. But I don't. And so after going rounds, we finally agreed that I would do the finger prick test for my gestational diabetes. Yeah. And I went and got it. And I did the numbers and all the things, and I brought them back to her. Said, here's my little journal. And she's like, oh my gosh, your numbers are so great. Mm-hmm. You're so healthy. Good for you.
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
After going rounds and rounds and rounds with midwives all through my pregnancy, which is a stressor. If you're a crunchy person and you deny a lot or all things in your visits, that's a lot of stress on a pregnant woman, because they don't let things go easily, because they're doctors and they know best. And anyway, so there's that. And okay, I labored at home for a while, because I woke up, it was Thursday. My first two were born on Thursdays, which was fun. But I woke up at like one or maybe 2 in the morning, I think. And I was in the shower, because I was having contractions, but I've had Braxton Hicks. So I just got in the shower, and at some point I realized, okay, these are actual contractions. And I didn't wake up my husband until like right before I called my mom to come over and watch my first. That was, I think, at like 5 o'clock?
Yeah, because I had to watch him while you guys started out for the
Yeah,
hospital,
and
and
then Pop
then
came.
and
Yeah.
then Pop came over to hang out with the little guy, and then I went over.
Yeah. And so I think we got to the hospital around 6, and she was born at 7-ish.
Yeah.
I think. And so it was really, really fast. Now, this birth, I had a natural birth, and I wanted a natural birth. And I wanted the least amount of interventions as possible. So I get in there, and I brought my snacks because I wasn't going to be told, no, you can't eat, because that is one of the biggest things now looking back is you're in the hospital, you're laboring for 24 to 36 hours. Now, I've never had this long of a labor.
Some people do that.
But a lot of people do. First time moms do. And they don't let you eat just in case.
That's wrong.
You might get a C-section, which I can almost guarantee you, you're not eating for 36 hours. You're not going to be able to push through and have the baby. Okay? Let's just get that one out there.
Yeah, you need the energy.
Yeah. So I brought my food in. I was sneaky with it though. I didn't eat during my labor once I got there.
It's only because
she came so fast.
We didn't want to hassle with everything.
I didn't want more stress. So they are like, okay, we need to put the interlock, what's it called? For your vein.
Oh, an IV. They wanted an IV in her.
Yeah, an IV lock, just in case. More there just in cases. Just in case we need to give you something. And I said, at that point, I was on the floor of the hospital room, leaning on a stool. And I said, after arguing with them back and forth, and then like, we really just need to put what in you. It's policy. I said, you know what? That's fine. Whatever. You come down to me, though. I'm not moving. And so they're like, well, that's really inconvenient. Can you come to the bed? I said, no, I'm in labor. You get on the floor.
Yeah.
I was really pissed about that.
Well, they were trying to get her on the bed like throughout her labor because I kept having to, I mean, I didn't really yell at people. I felt like I was. They kept wanting her to get on the bed, be on her back. And I was like, no, because we, by this time she and I had read up a little more, and we're like, no, she needs to be wherever she's comfortable to labor. And that is not actually good for you to be on your back anyway.
No, it's the most convenient position for the doctors to sit in their chair and pull your baby out.
Yeah. And so, of course, we had to argue about that because they wanted that for their convenience. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah. And so I said, well, you want to pick her up and put her on the bed? And the lady's just like, well, no. And I said, well, then leave her alone. So, I was just basically having to say leave her alone, I don't know, a multitude of times in the scheme of that whole thing. It wasn't even that long. I was like, just let her go. The other reason why they don't want you to eat prior to having a baby is because you will defecate. You'll poop. And the lady was like, have you had anything to eat? And I said, well, Jessica tells her, yeah, I've been eating. And she's like, well, I said, well, do you have a rubber glove and a little pan? If something comes out, I'll take care of it. So a little TMI, but yeah, I was like picking up her little poops and put them in a little pan. Wasn't a thing. Was not a thing.
But everybody poops. Get over it.
So I'm on the back. Son-in-law's in the front.
Which I would not allow him to go back there because I knew I was pooping. And that's stupid. He did not care.
He didn't care.
But he, was because I was on all fours on the bed, backwards on the bed. So my face was at the end of the bed and my backside was at the front of the bed. But the bed was sitting like this still, I think.
Yeah.
They never put it down.
They never put it down for her comfort. And to be honest, I feel bad that I think back that I should have said something.
It didn't matter.
We were just in the throes of the whole thing, and it actually happened very fast.
And it was funny. The midwife that I went rounds with throughout my entire pregnancy, she was the one who delivered my baby. But the weirdest thing was she was the one to kind of fight with the nurses for me, which was so weird.
Yeah, it was so weird.
Because I had the baby, and since I was on all fours, they just handed her to me, and I pulled her up this way, and then I sat up and I held her on me for skin to skin. And the nurses wanted to take her right away and go clean her up because she's so dirty, which don't do that.
They're not dirty.
They're not. They need that from coming out of a wet area their entire life so far into a dry climate. And you're going to take away the skin protection that God has given them to adapt to this environment. So, anyways, she comes out, I lay down, and they start their pressure on my stomach because they want the placenta out.
Yep.
And this time I delayed the cord cut for, I think, 5 minutes, which still isn't long enough. It's longer than my son got.
We still didn't know, though.
We still didn't know. Exactly. I delayed for a little bit, but not long enough. Anyway, so we got the cord, and they're still trying to get the placenta out. Now, as far as I know, I don't remember being asked to give me Pitocin. Did they ask to give me Pitocin?
They asked, and you said no.
They gave it to me anyways.
Yeah, they gave it to you anyway.
In my birth record, which I requested, I was able to get the one for my daughter, my second birth. I requested it from the hospital before I had my third recently. And they had given me Pitocin. I didn't remember giving any okay for that. But the midwife was pulling on my umbilical cord, which is also in the notes.
Yeah, a little gentle tug. Gentle tug.
And she caused a postpartum hemorrhage. And apparently, again, not to my knowledge, baseball-sized clots were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was very concerning.
Yeah. I mean, luckily at that point, because of what she did, they had already given me Pitocin. So then I would, I wasn't going to bleed out. But they probably gave me the Pitocin knowing they were going to do that and possibly cause damage. I don't know.
We don't know.
But don't ever let anyone pull on your cord. That is so bad for you. And it can cause serious issues.
But they're trying to turn the table.
They're trying to turn the table.
Because they get her in and out,
yep.
Next one can come in. It's all about money. Hate to say that.
But it is.
But it is about the money. We didn't know that they pulled the cord until we got her records, and we're reading through, because being here, we wanted to do this home birth with no assistance, an unassisted home birth, and here I am going, oh my gosh, let's get our records. Yeah. Let's read through the doctor's notes. I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. Most of the stuff I didn't understand to a degree, but then I would just Google certain words and kind of figure it out. And that's when we found out that they did that, and I thought, well, that makes a difference, because she was bleeding. And then apparently, this was, I thought, very unprofessional. Somebody, a nurse or somebody, made a comment, oh, those redheads, they just bleed like pigs.
I can't tell you how many nurses came into my room just to see if it was true.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're the ones that their intervention is what caused the bleeding in the first place.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And healing after that one was a little bit better. I still had a second-degree tear because I had coached pushing, which I don't believe in now. But I had a second-degree tear, and it took quite a bit to heal up. I think still same amount of time almost as the first one.
A month or two at least.
Yeah, bleeding wise. And then, your undercarriage still is sensitive for a few months after that still. You just had a baby. Obviously, things are going to happen. But I personally don't believe in a healthy birth and pregnancy that it should take that long. Mm-mm. Now, I thought it was normal. I really did. And then I breastfed my daughter. It was very difficult to get her to latch. But we managed it because I was determined to do that.
Yeah. And I made it happen.
Yeah. And they had a lactation consultant at that point, which was great. So
that's what led us down to the home birth.
Yes.
And she told me, Mom, by the way, her and her husband, we're going to do an unassisted home birth. I said, oh, okay. Like most mothers, we'd be like, okay. You don't want to criticize what your kids really do. So you're just like, And she said, oh, and by the way, can you be my doula? And I said, what's a doula? And then I started on the road of all the studies, which is a lot of books that I have here, which was amazing. It was just a mind blower for me, because what I know now from studying and taking those courses is that I had 2 C-sections, and I can honestly tell you they were most likely both unnecessary. Okay, because I ended up with the first one due to doctor intervention in the first place. So had I not gone in, did the epidural, I went in too early. They were trying to hurry the whole thing, the Pitocin. I was in there 20 something hours. Finally, they said, oh, she's been in there too long. We need to take her. Yeah. So, when you're a new mom, like anybody, you don't know.
Well, it doesn't help that they say you could harm your baby. Your baby might die.
Your baby might die if we don't take it now. So you learn that. Second one, C-section, because then they tell you, oh, well, because you had the first C-section, your uterus is at risk for, ripping. And so if that happens, you and the baby could both die. And of course, you don't want that. So then they talked me into a scheduled C-section, which, you know, both C-sections, to be honest, for me, I'm not going to lie, I had a very easy recovery. I'm not one of those people. I was up and walking around within a couple of days, but I'm not a normal person with a very high pain tolerance. So that's probably not the norm. I'm sure lots of people with comments, we'd like to hear how long it took you to recover, because I think that would be helpful to the other people possibly reading comments, assuming we have comments. I know we're kind of new at this, so we may not even have any comments. So if you do have information on that, on your experience, we want to hear about it. It's not just us want to hear, but the other people who may be commenting or reading the comments could benefit from that. So knowing that, after doing all my studies, it made me feel so much better and so much more confident going through this with Jessica and my son-in-law.
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience. And to be honest, I didn't even really see a midwife. I got an ultrasound at 8 weeks just to confirm and make sure it wasn't twins, because that would have complicated things. But besides that, I did all my own midwife care, because I mean, all they do is they check your urine, which I got the things to check my urine. I had my labs done a few times, I think, you know, just to kind of see what my levels were for different things, just to make sure everything was going well. And I was taking beef liver supplements and eating a very carnivore dense diet at the time of the pregnancy. Well, after the first trimester, because I was so sick. But other than, and you know, I measured my fundal height the best I could. We would kind of try and feel for the baby.
We weighed you
We weighed me.
The interesting thing is we had our own little chart, and we did it on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
As opposed to every couple of months.
Yeah. I would check my pee every week and measure everything, make sure baby's growing well, write down any notes if, you know, there was times where baby wasn't kicking or whatever the heck. But, and so I didn't know the sex of the baby at the time of my pregnancy, which was honestly the most fun. And fun. I will do that again. Yeah. Finding out the baby once they come out is just so thrilling and exciting.
Yeah, for all of us.
Yes, for all of us involved. So we had a boy name and a girl name, and we got whichever came out. But yeah. So let's tell the birth story. I love this birth story. Okay. So I think labor started somewhere between 1:30 and 2:30.
By that time, we weren't good at writing these things down.
Yeah, we should have. I said we were, and I didn't. But it was just like the beginning of labor, and so I just let her know. I said, hey, maybe, you know, finish up with whatever work you have going on in the NICU, and Pop can come over and hang out because baby's coming sometime. Yeah. And she said, okay. And then I called my husband and I said, hey, mom will be here soon. And so he's like, do I need to come home? I said, no. I'm pretty sure we'll be fine until after you get off work. Unless you just feel like coming home, then come home. But whatever you want to do, it's your choice. I just wanted to let you know what's going on. He's okay. He stays at work. I don't think y'all got there till around 4.
Yeah, maybe 4.
Yeah. So they're over just hanging out, and we call and get some pizza ordered for my husband to pick up on the way home. Now, I'm not in active labor yet. I'm still in the beginning stages.
Still early.
And he gets home and he's on the phone in his car, which fine. But then he's just sitting in his car. So I go out there and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm hungry. So he's like, okay. So he comes inside, brings the pizza in. And then we play Skippo for several hours while eating pizza. I'm kind of just bouncing around, you know, doing my contractions, leaning on the table. And
but then the contractions slowed down a little bit. Remember, because we had to go for a walk.
Oh, yeah. I was laughing so much because we were having such a good time. They were getting slower, and we were like, I think it was about 7 o'clock-ish?
Yeah, it was still light out because it's summer.
It was summertime.
We started walking around, and she'd just have her contractions leaning against the light post or a fence.
Yeah, somebody's doorway, or just lean against it. We were in a neighborhood at the time. But yeah, it was a nice walk.
Yeah, the youngest came with us.
Or they both did.
Did they both?
They both came.
Oh, yeah. It was fun. It was a fun little walk, even though she's contracting along the way.
They were loving being a part of it, though.
But the walk really helped things move along.
And we didn't go that far. We didn't even go a quarter of a mile.
We just went more like maybe a block and a half.
If that. Like we started, and I think a block away, we We went around the corner, and then we crossed the street, went down, and came back across the street again. But halfway through, I was like, we got to turn around somewhere because this is getting out of control. So at that point, it was starting to feel it.
Right.
And when we got back to the house, that's when everyone was still hanging out in the living room. And I kind of just went in my room with Alex.
Yeah, you guys were just in there. Pop and I were just handling the kids. It was getting close to their bedtime by now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so y'all went and tucked them in, huh?
Yeah, so our plan was if she had the baby during the daylight hours, then Pop and the kids would just go upstairs to their rooms and play and hang out until the baby came. If the baby came after their nighttime, then we would tuck them in. Pop would go home, and I would stay. So that's how that
happened. Yeah.
And so that you kind of have to make your plans as, all right, well, if this happens, we'll do this. This happens. Yeah. You can't make plans for everything, though. Ours worked out, but you always have to be ready.
Yeah. And we started the bath water because I really wanted to labor in the tub, and I had a big old tub, which I liked and I didn't like. I didn't like how hard it was to get into because it was a clawfoot tub, so it was tall, and I was laboring, and it was so hard to get in and out. And I got in, and it felt like labor stopped. Well, looking back now, we know that my labor was still going.
It was still going, but she was comfortable.
But I was comfortable, and I didn't really feel it.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have stayed in the tub, but I didn't want my labor to stall and it would just take forever.
Right.
Because, I already had a full day of doing whatever it was I was doing with the kids that day. I was already getting tired. And I didn't want to make it back to the bedroom after that. So we just kind of stayed in the bathroom. And she was, you need to go to the bathroom. You need to pee. Yeah, tell them why I had to pee. Why you were making me go to the bathroom.
On the hour, basically. I made her sit on the pot and go pee. Even though she's like, Mom, I can't. I said, you have pee in there, I'm sure. And the reason why is if you allow your bladder to get full, it makes the whole labor process harder and take longer. And it actually could stall the labor altogether.
And that's something that she learned in her doula classes. Which we'll talk about these books later. Don't worry.
Yeah, it was great to know stuff. And so so not only that, I made her drink water. We had water or ice chips for her. Okay, here, put this in your mouth. Mom, I don't want to. Yes, you make them do it. Yeah. Like, here you go, drink your water. Okay, time to pee. Drink the water. Time to pee. Yeah. I know I was like a broken record.
No, but I'm so thankful that I had you there to do that because, if you're just going through it by yourself, you don't really know. You're not going to tell yourself to go pee. Mm-mm. I probably would have listened to my husband if he told me to go pee, but he's not going to tell me to go pee.
But you don't want to let yourself get dehydrated either. Yeah. So, and that's very important because we all know if we get dehydrated, everything contracts, everything's harder.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So those things are important.
I think active labor started probably around 9.
Yeah,
9.
Kids were in bed.
Yeah, they
kids were in bed. So the interesting thing, one of the many things I learned, and I got to share with another family when I was helping another birth around New Year's, is that, and this is what I thought was amazing. There's a hormone exchange between the husband and wife, and so it's very important. And I was sharing this with the other couple because the first baby, she labored a long time and wasn't. They weren't connected. She just wanted to be by herself because that's the person she is. So things probably took a lot longer. Whereas the second time, even with her, and I knew it was true then because hers, once he showed up and was there, that baby came out. Same thing with her and my son-in-law. She was laying in his lap.
Yeah, we were in the bathroom. We just pulled one of the dining room chairs in. He was sitting on the chair and I was, with his legs out, and then I was leaning on his legs. And so he was like rubbing my, upper back and
giving him good, you're doing great, babe. You're doing great. He and I had a little watch, a little timer we had going on, and we, looking at each other. Yeah. All right, we're good. And so, it was very much a wonderful team effort. I mean, the labor was hard, and we're not going to pretend it didn't hurt.
It hurt.
She broke
a lot.
Comb.
I did. I took one of his wooden mustache combs, and looking back now, I should have looked more into it because I had heard that, holding a comb and squeezing it was really good for pain management. Apparently, I got it somewhat wrong because it's a acupressure thing. So right here on your hand, right where your fingers meet your palm,
right,
that's the pressure point. That's where you squeeze the comb to help with pain. My genius brain didn't go look for that. So I was just squeezing it. I had cuts on my hand because I was just squeezing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it helped a little bit, but I don't think it helped as much as it would have had I looked into that more. So now we know that for the next one. But baby came out at like 11 o'clock, almost on the dot.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't even remember pushing at all.
No, because we had decided early on not to do active pushing.
Yeah. There wasn't going to be like, okay. I was just going to follow my body. I bared down for sure because that's natural. You bear down for birth.
I was talking to her husband. Okay, the head's there. Head comes out. And then so when the baby started to come, I was just there to make sure that the baby didn't fall on the floor, but she was able to grab it. I just kind of guided it through to the front.
Yeah. I was able to catch my own baby, which was, it was so cool. So baby just came out. I put him on my chest, and immediately we stand up and go to the bed. Now, the bed I had learned from, I can't tell you how many birth stories I watched, home birth stories, preparing for this birth. And one thing that a lot of them said was you put your favorite sheets washed for like a few weeks before your guest date, and you put it down, and then you put shower curtains on top of that, and then you put another set of sheets on top.
That you don't care about.
And so that's what we did.
Put you on the bed.
Yeah.
Okay, because we had to wait for the placenta. Mm-hmm. That was a good hour.
And 45 minutes. It was an hour and 45 minutes.
To wait for the placenta to start coming out naturally. The wonderful thing, she was able to breastfeed the baby right away, still hooked. Yep. All right? And we waited.
And the placenta was still inside me, and I'm just laying on my bed.
Okay, so once you start breastfeeding, the activity of breastfeeding creates a hormone exchange that then initiates the placenta to begin to come out. So then you start laboring a little bit to push that out.
It had been a good hour, I think it was probably an hour and 30 minutes maybe before we cut the cord.
Yeah, because you were starting to labor a little bit for the placenta, and the cord had gone white, which is what you're supposed to do is wait, and then you cut the cord. So Alex did that. Yeah, we cut the cord. We didn't have any special tools for this. I told him, I said, you are in charge of this part of it. You need a clean, sterilized, sharp knife. So he had one available, ready on the bedside to cut the cord when that happened. And then at that point, he went to take the baby to go weigh the baby. And this is my smallest one, which was crazy. 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Yeah, that's I think. He takes the baby, and I also wanted a shower too, because I'd been sweaty and all, labor. And so he takes the baby, goes to weigh the baby, try and measure it as best as we can, so we can write it all down. And I get in the shower, and you give me a tincture. I gave her a tincture, shepherd's purse, just a little bit, a quarter teaspoon. Because of the previous baby that we had read about her hemorrhaging, we were a little concerned about that. So I gave her just a quarter teaspoon before the placenta came out, just to make sure we didn't have any bleeding issues. So the placenta came out, minimal blood.
Oh my gosh, it was like nothing.
It was like nothing. And so she got all cleaned up. I took care of the placenta, wrapped it up, put it in the fridge for now. We'll deal with that later. And got her back to bed. She's still a little shaky, of course. It was a lot of work to get birth. So we get her back to the bed. Dad comes back with baby. And now they're all resting. We're just, and by now it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah, probably close to 2 a.m. At that point, I had clean sheets.
Yeah, I took off all those sheets. I cleaned up the bathroom. Everything was back to normal.
Yeah.
Put them to bed. I laid on the couch just to be there in case she needed me overnight to go to sleep or to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, so every time I went to the bathroom, I would just call her, and she would kind of help me to the bathroom.
Right. It worked out because she could hand the baby to her husband.
Yeah.
And then I would help her to the bathroom.
So first of all, the latch for this baby, number 3, breastfeeding, so easy. Such an easy latch. And he has a really bad tongue tie, which I didn't even know about at the time until after he went to see a chiropractor at like 3 months old. I was asked, does he have a hard time latching? I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, there's a really bad tongue tie. I was like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's eating great.
Yeah.
He never had a problem latching. And then let's see. Okay, so recovery wise, this was the easiest recovery. I never went and got checked out by a midwife or anybody after. She kind of just checked down there.
Checked down there.
We think there was about a first degree, maybe
barely.
Barely anything. We looked online. We're like, all right, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm not a doctor.
So I'm holding my baby. We're looking on the computer. All right, what do we have down there? We think it was a first degree, if that. Mm-hmm. It may have just been like I don't even, tiniest little thing.
Right.
I didn't see it. It's all her vision. Recovery, that part was great. We had a salve that she made, an herbal salve, and we do sell that also. I love this name.
Lube-milady.
Lube-milady.
Because the lady needs some lube sometimes.
Yes. It's great for menopausal women. It's great for postpartum women. It's great for women who need a little extra moisture for extracurricular activities. Mm-hmm. But that really helped heal things up down there very quickly. But as far as the bleeding goes, this one, I stopped bleeding within 2 weeks. Yeah. I took the shepherd's purse every other day, tiny drops of it for a few days after the birth. Yeah.
Because it doesn't take much. Mm-mm. I mean, this stuff, you put it on an open wound, it'll immediately stop bleeding. So, I mean, God gives us wonderful herbs for our benefit.
And the recovery was phenomenal. Anything else that you want to add about the birth?
No, not really. I mean, you guys got it. I think part of what was wonderful about the home birth, at least from my perspective, having been with her in the hospital both times, because anyone who's been in the hospital, nobody sleeps in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
But
so
here the baby comes, they slept in.
Oh, I don't.
The kids were upstairs. I get up. I start making breakfast. Mm-hmm. They got a really, really good rest.
And I had steak for breakfast.
Yes, we had steak for breakfast.
Steak. My favorite part, I think, of almost the whole thing.
I know. It's just, oh my gosh.
It was early.
So excited.
It was really, really early. And I think it was like maybe 6:30 in the morning, which is around the time my kids like to wake up. And so I think it was first the youngest, our now middle child, I guess we should say. She comes down and I hear her on the couch with Gran, because my bedroom was right there at the time. And she goes, "Mom, awake? Did the baby come?" She goes, "I think your mom's sleeping." I was like, "I'm awake. Do you want to meet the baby?"
Oh my gosh.
She was so excited.
Adorable. But that restful time. So then, of course, my son-in-law took that day off. So we're all home, and as a doula, part of what I like to do is also be postpartum doula. So that was a really good practice for me, cleaning up, making sure, when you have a new baby and you go home, it's very stressful because things have to get done. The dishes need to get done. The floor needs to get swept. And if you're recovering, regardless of a home birth or hospital birth, it doesn't matter. You need the extra help. A lot of people have the benefit of their parents coming. Like she had the benefit of me being there, but not everybody has that. Sometimes their parents live far away. Yeah. So a doula, whether me or any other doula, postpartum wise, it's good to have someone at least coming by every couple of days or every day if that's your desire to.
Especially if you have older kids.
It's older kids because they can cook, they can clean, they can do some laundry. I mean, it's everything to make you less stressed. So you can sit there and concentrate on feeding the baby, making sure the latch is good, making sure everything's going well. And you really should stay in bed for, at least 3 or 4 days as much as you can. And when I was in Europe in the Army, I'm going to add this.
Yes. I mean, the culture over there is so different for birth.
So I was in the Army, and my girlfriend, she was the wife of one of my friends who's also in the Army, you can't go to the local hospital with the Germans unless you're so far in labor. Otherwise, they make you go to the military hospital, which they make you make your own bed and clean your own. You have to mop your own room. I mean, they have to clean. You have to do all your work.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
So a lot of people, we would wait. So I'm sitting there waiting with her. Her husband's out in the field. He can't even come home for the birth. So, we have to wait until her active labor was so close. And this is new. I'm in my 20s. I have no clue what's going on.
Because no one teaches you.
All we knew is this is what we were going to do. She didn't have any other kids. This was her first child. And so finally we ran over to German hospital. And they're like, ein Moment, like, oh, baby now. And, her water breaks and they're like, oh, baby now. So everyone starts, scooting around. Oh my gosh, they treated her like a queen. She stayed there in the military hospital. You're lucky to be there 2 to 3 days. But see, the benefit, they had her there for almost a week and they treated her like a princess. And I thought that's how people should be treated after they have their babies.
Yeah.
And so that was my first birth experience, I guess you could say. Being part of that and seeing how the differences on how people are treated in different places, different countries.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. So with her, my son-in-law, I was able to come over and look after the littles and just kind of make sure that she could relax. And then the weekend came. Dad's home all day. They don't need me there except for they needed me there.
He didn't go to work. So the baby was born on Tuesday night. He didn't go to work on Wednesday. And then he went to work Thursday, Friday.
Right.
And you came over a lot those 2 days.
Yeah.
Then Saturday, I didn't want to miss a market.
Yeah. So we're farmers market.
We do farmers markets, and you go set up really, really early. So I didn't go set up early or anything, but I got there by the time the market started at
10.
No, 8 or 9. I think I got there around 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock probably.
And I was there the whole day. I didn't pack up, or I obviously didn't do anything but sit there. But I wanted to. I love to be at the farmers market. It's my favorite place on Saturdays.
So that little baby hasn't missed the market yet.
Yeah.
And he's 9 months old. 8 months.
He's
old.
9 months. Oh my God. No, he's 8 months. He's 8 months old. Almost 9 months. Goodness gracious.
So, as far as the research that we did, when you embark on a journey like this and you don't know, you don't know anything. Really. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I knew anything. I mean, you didn't even know what a doula was or what they do. So we had read, several people had said one of the people that you have to get their books is the M.Hy. This is the Guide to Breastfeeding.
You read this.
You have to read it.
This is, I think, how I was able to breastfeed my third so easily. Even him having a tongue tie, I didn't even know. That's how easy it was because I had read this book, and it tells you that you actually can feed with a breast tie. You do not have to get it clipped.
Yeah. So M.Hy, this is almost like your Bible of birth.
Yes.
Period.
And this is the birth one.
And it has birth stories in there. It's very informative, very helpful.
I love this book.
And then this book here is HypnoBirthing.
Oh, that was a very interesting book.
It was an interesting book. I think we need a little more education on this. I have read wonderful things about this experience. I've talked to people about it. It's just something that it's good to read and kind of get to know. You can actually do this to yourself. You don't really need another person to do it to you. But it's very helpful, very informative book. Yeah. And
then I read this one. I think you read all the ones I read.
We all read all of them.
I would find books and I would just pass them to her when I was done. But this one's The Unassisted Baby. I loved this book. What I like about a lot of these is there's so many birth stories and different circumstances. Some of these have ones that they started at home, they wanted a home birth, they had to go to the hospital, or a complication or two. One of them, I honestly don't remember. I think one of them talks about breech birth because you can actually have a breech birth at home. There's a technique to it that doctors aren't taught anymore.
Okay, and then another one this was recommended during my class as one of our class reading requirements. This is the birth partner. It was very informative on helping to guide the dad, helping to guide the dad or whoever's assisting into what to do, how to be helpful, how to do certain things so that they go in it with confidence. Yeah. So I think a lot of dads don't get that education. I mean, I know when I was young, I went through the whole Lamaze class thing. And when it was over with, me and my husband at the time, I didn't feel good about what was happening. I had no clue. It wasn't helpful at all. I mean, I don't know what to say. So it's a very helpful book, though.
This one, I think most of these stories are based in the UK, so it's a little bit different law-wise here, but still some really, really, really great birth stories. I read so many of these books that I don't remember exactly which book had it in there, but this story has stuck with me. And I think it's super, super important to note that when you're in labor, people around you can literally stall your labor because of the stressors. And one of the birth stories that I read was this woman was giving birth and her OB was new-ish. He hadn't had very many births before this. And he's sitting there, she's on her back, and she's pushing, and the baby's head's coming out like this instead of the top of the head, it's the face, right? And he makes like a face about it. She sees him make this face, and her bodily instincts sucked the baby back in so hard it broke a rib. With that being said, if you're in a hospital setting or even a home setting and there's somebody there that you don't like, or there's underlying stress, it could stall or stop your labor.
Even don't be afraid to send people away, especially even if they're relatives.
Yes, say you need to leave. I'm sorry.
I know. I love you. You can't be here.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the essential home birth guide. This was very helpful. It does have a lot of medical stuff, is because there's certain midwives that are more medical than others. I mean, the midwife that I worked with recently, she's a trained medical professional, absolutely, but she operates from a holistic side of things. And in some of these books, that's a lot of information is that the medical side. Doesn't hurt to know it. Yeah. That way, because you as the patient, as the mother, if they're coming in to you and saying, okay, we need to do X, Y, and Z, you know what they're talking about. And you can have a choice. You can say no. Yeah. And then the pregnancy, childbirth, and newborn, this is basically the textbook that I had during my class, other than this one and the partner birth. Those were all considered required reading, and we had to be tested on it. This one was really good. There again, also a lot of medical hospital related experiences, but still helpful to know, because you don't know if you're going to be in the hospital or not. There are people who start the home birth and then things get a little shaky, or they get nervous or afraid, and they're not sure what to do, or something happens they're not sure of. And then you can still go to the hospital. Yeah,
I mean, go with your instincts. If there had been a point to where I felt we needed to go to the hospital during the birth, we would have gone. I was just trusting my instincts on that.
The hospital was only 4 blocks away.
So it really wasn't that far. We just hop on the car. But this one I really liked having. Yes. It's the Herbal Healing for Women by Rosemary Gladstar, which is one of her favorite herbalists. Yeah. Has a lot of stuff in here about pregnancy and birth. And so if you're into herbs and you love God's healing plants and babies, and you're going to have babies and all the things, or if you're just a woman, this is a really, really good book to have.
It takes you through puberty to menopause.
Yeah, all the way through every life stage you could possibly have. Yeah. And then, let's see, this one isn't really about birth, but I wanted to bring it up for this podcast because it's the diaper-free book, because we are doing elimination communication. My 8-month-old pretty much only poops in the potty. He's had a few here and there accidents, I would call them at this point, but mostly he just poops in the potty, which is great, which he's been doing since like 5.5 months. Yeah. Both of these Nourishing Tradition books, this one in particular talks a lot about babies, nutrition, and stuff that has to do with kids and pregnancy and babies. So this one I would highly recommend to anyone who's pregnant or having kids. Or if you already have kids, you're done being pregnant. It also talks a lot about big kids and nutrition. And then this one has lots of recipes for really good stuff, like bone broths and wonderful things like that. Those are...
Everyone should have those.
Everyone should have these. I love these
We'll
books.
make a list in a link down.
Yes.
We'll make a list down below for you.
One thing I did want to mention about my most recent birth, we didn't do any cervical checks at all during the whole birth. Now, we had a chart with different sized fruits, so we knew what they were if we decided to do that. But it's not a requirement to get cervical checks to have a baby. Maybe in the hospital because it's standard, but you could go from 2 centimeters to pushing your baby out in a matter of 10 minutes. So it's not a good scale to measure your birth on. No. And how far along you are. It really isn't.
It actually can disrupt your birth. It could stop your birth or slow your birth.
Yeah. It could cause infection if your water has broken.
You're introducing infection every time someone puts their hands in there, and check. And so it's better off. It doesn't really matter where you are. I mean, people want you to know, but see, the problem is if you're 7 or 8 centimeters, in your mind, you're like, oh, good, I'm almost there. But then maybe you're not. Yeah. And so then it causes this false sense of I'm almost done, and you're not. Yeah. So the stress of that, another hour goes by. Oh, you're still at 7, and then it starts to weigh on you. Oh no, what's happening? Something must be wrong.
And you start to doubt yourself, and then your body
reacts to that.
It feels what you're feeling. Yeah. And when you're pregnant, everything is just heightened. Yeah.
The truth is our bodies are built with a natural ejection, period. You will not be pregnant forever. The baby does come out whether you want it to or not. You could try and hold your baby in and it will not.
Yeah.
Your body will naturally eject the baby.
Yeah.
So that's why. There's no point in checking all that. It's just let the baby come when the baby comes. When your body is ejecting the baby comes out.
Inductions are
unnecessary most of the time.
What is it? I forget the exact statistic, but basically majority of inductions are for convenience purposes, whether it's for the mother or it's for the doctor.
Yeah, and many of them lead to C-section. So that's another thing to look at. When you're being induced, that's not a natural thing.
No.
They're putting chemicals in your body that aren't your natural.
Well, see, and the reason it leads to C-section is because when you put the Pitocin in, that's supposed to act as the oxytocin hormone to get the labor started, but it's a synthetic hormone. It makes the contractions more difficult. Mm-hmm. They hurt more.
And they hurt the baby.
And they hurt the baby because they come faster, so the baby doesn't have time to recover in between the contractions. And so then the baby's fetal heart rate gets sporadic, and the doctors start freaking out. Oh, your baby's not laboring well. We got to take it out C-section. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, that was because of what they did in the first place, giving you an induction.
Right.
So
a lot of their interventions lead to other interventions.
Yeah.
And so as long as you do your research, be mindful of that. Have a knowledgeable holistic doula or a midwife and or both, which is always helpful because like in the birth that I did around New Year's, it was nice for the mother because I could come over earlier than the midwife. So I came over and spent the whole afternoon with her, taking care of things that need to be done. She had a little toddler. So that made it easier for her not to worry over that. And then we called the midwife when it was time. And so it all worked out.
Oh, tell about when the husband came home. That's my favorite part of the story.
She had sent her husband because she was a little early. They weren't expecting the baby that day. So that morning he got up. They needed wood for the fire. They were getting pretty low, and also some water, I guess, from one of those water stations. So, but the problem is where his wood was, there was no reception. So he's gone to get wood and water at her direction now. And so the labor starts. I go over there. I say, oh, he'll be home in plenty of time. And now we're in active labor. Midwife is there. The pool is full of water. She's in the pool. He's still not home. She's getting a little excited. I said, he'll get here. He'll get here. And this is where I realized that hormonal exchange was so true because she's laboring and laboring and laboring. Finally, he gets there, covered in sawdust because he'd just been cutting wood. He just kind of shoves himself off, boots and all, sits down in front of her. Baby comes out shortly thereafter. So she was waiting for him to get there. Baby was waiting for him to get there. It was just wonderful. So, yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed being part of that. And the midwife was just wonderful. She's out of Bozeman, so if you're in Montana, you can message me and I will happily share her information.
Yeah. I'm so excited for your doula experiences.
Mm-hmm. It's really great. Yeah. I think that pretty much covers home birth, your birth. We'd like to hear your birth stories. I mean, there's just not enough information, and it's helpful to hear about everybody's birth story, even if it's not so fun, because we learn from the ones that maybe didn't turn out right, like her first two. First one especially. Second one was better. Every time you learn something new, and then you can do something different the next time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, I didn't even know everything with the third one, even after all my research, hence the comb in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But... All right. Well, I think that basically sums it up this podcast. This is an extra long podcast, but I think everything that we talked about really needed to be said. Also, please stick with us because we are learning about all of the things. We got a little tiny new camera here instead of using my phone like we did the first time.
Yeah.
We have our little microphones.
Yeah, we're amateurs. We're amateurs. Bear with us. We're going to get better as we go. She's doing all the editing and learning how to do it.
Yeah, that's a different subject.
So, but this podcast thing, at my age, you're like, I don't want to do a podcast, but it's fun. It's fun knowing that we're able to talk to people because we talk to people all the time at the farmers market. People come in, hey, I got this going on. Do you have something for that? we do a lot of wonderful things for people, and hearing about their experiences or ways that we can help them, even if it's just a hug or a little moral support or a few minutes, we take them off to the side and sometimes we have a chat. Small things go a long way. It's not always about what products we sell. Sometimes it's just about caring for other people and showing that compassion when they need it.
That was definitely one of my favorite parts of the farmers market.
Yeah, we love giving. We have people come in and you can tell, he's like, well, I'm just going to give this to them because they obviously should try this because they need it. We don't expect people. Of course, it helps when they buy things, but at the same time, if people have a need, God calls us to meet those needs. And so that's what we're trying to do with this podcast as well.
Thank y'all for watching.
Have a great week.
Bye.